San Angelo is a key city along the Ports to Plains corridor. Settled along the Concho River, San Angelo is home to both scenic beauty and booming business. And all that business is thanks in part to good transportation infrastructure and the expansion of Ports to Plains.
Very important that we continue as we grow the jobs and the companies and the residents, that we have good transportation in and out of San Angelo. And Ports to Plains, of course, is our connection.
I've been on the Ports to Plains Board of Directors now for about 2 years. And I represent this area of the Ports to Plains Alliance. Ports to Plains has been in existence now about 15 years. And if you go back and review what has been done with Ports to Plains over the last 15 years, you will find that there have been some tremendous advances made. That can be directly attributed to Ports to Plains.
A great deal of benefit potentially to the city of San Angelo with the success of the Ports to Plains corridor and its completion. As you may know, there is one segment of the corridor that is not yet completed or scheduled for funding and completion, and that is the segment south of San Angelo to Del Rio. On the Mexican side, there has been a tremendous amount of infrastructure work done in the last few years. Maybe not to support Ports to Plains, but clearly we have made that connection and the Mexican government understands that. So they are now becoming members. The states that have this highway are now becoming members of the Ports to Plains Alliance. And those improvements go from Ciudad Acuña down south into Torreon, and then they move out west through the state of Durango and on to the port of Mazatlan. So the Mexicans have done a lot of work, and certainly there's been a lot of work on infrastructure in the U.S., with the exception of our piece. The Ports to Plains corridor continues on north then now into Alberta, Canada. So what started out, I think, as a corridor to move grains out of the middle part of America through the plains in Lubbock has now really become quite an international activity with international interest. So there is a lot of opportunity with the growth of the traffic, the freight traffic that is on that corridor. And in our case, we think there is also great opportunity with the crossing or the intersection of rail with this corridor. So we see that as having tremendous opportunity for the city of San Angelo.
By working with Ports to Plains, it's a way and an opportunity to rebuild on the infrastructure of the highways and the rails for the shipment. That now it's not just about what's right here in the United States. So many companies now work and live and operate abroad. From other continents, products and goods are needed in both places, and a good example is the cotton that we grow right here in San Angelo. I'd say 75% of our cotton that is grown here is shipped to a place in Mexico. And in Mexico, where they turn it into Levi's and make Levi's. And those Levi's are turned around and shipped right back to folks in the United States and Canada.
Alberta, Canada is one of the largest trade partners that we have. That's oil up there. They have the oil, we have the expertise, and we have the people, and we have the equipment. It's a tremendous trade opportunity that we have between Texas and Alberta, but we've got to have the roads to get this equipment and these people and these men and this technology that we have up there where it's needed.
I think the big thing is it gives them access to the markets. I think when you look, 50, 75 years ago, it was farm to market roads for farmers to get their crops to the local market, which was usually pretty close by. But today in a global economy, you have to reach those global markets. And that's what Ports to Plains does. It gives you a chance to get in the game. It gives our communities a chance to compete in an international market.
We've had many conversations with the state of Coahuila as to what we might be able to do to support one another. I think when you look at manufacturing in the U.S., you don't see a lot of manufacturing coming from overseas to the U.S., and you don't see a lot of manufacturing jobs being created in the U.S. when you look at what's going on in Mexico. Mexico's labor costs are so much less. They are a likely source of manufacturing, but they also need the raw goods there to manufacture. Likewise, there are some things that we do in the U.S. and in Texas that they need. So Activities like this are not just about building highways and pouring concrete. It's really about establishing a network where there is a symbiotic relationship, perhaps, where both can benefit from connectivity to the other.
It's not just about the U.S. economy, it's a global economy. And I think I learned real quick visiting Canada and visiting Mexico how much of a global economy that it really is. We all face the same problems and struggles, and we all need to be working together to overcome. Common highway, a common port, whether it's sailed in across the oceans and meets the land and how it gets to places. And ports to plains in San Angelo is a very, very important part. What most people don't realize is San Angelo sits exactly halfway between Mexico City and Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And if you just look at your map and look at the growth, your food belt, your food chain, and your textile growth, the products that are grown, whether they're raw products or finished products, but most of it is raw products that needs to go to a completion point. It's an assembly line. And San Angelo is very unique that it happens to be sitting right in the middle of this unique assembly line. My role in Port to Plains is on a task force to work for the completion of the obstacles that are there.
A 4-lane divided highway running from the border of Mexico through West Texas to Oklahoma and New Mexico to Denver, Colorado is creating a lucrative trade route that will also ease congestion on other interstate highways.
About really upgrading a 2-lane highway in parts to 4-lane divided. And I think there's no secret or no mystery that the great economic impact that can have. We've seen it with the interstate construction back 50 years ago, and we've seen the great benefits that can be had by investing in our transportation infrastructure.
We asked the senators, and that's the reason we have picked up these other states, is because every state we pick up 2 senators. We're able to pick up House of Representatives. We're able to pick up and make a stronger lobbying effort so that we've got more people listening to us. But we need money to build these highways. We need money in Texas, we need money in Oklahoma, money in New Mexico, but all of these states, with these lobbying efforts, both with the state governments and with the federal government, we have been somewhat successful in having highway dollars being funneled to us that'll work in our projects.
Part of what our organization does, I think, is try to educate, and you know, I think there's always more to do locally. I think if you're talking about people involved in transportation in the states that are involved in the corridor, they might be more knowledgeable, but just from a grassroots effort, getting more citizens to understand what benefits can come. And in doing that, then there's more, I think, political interest in seeing that happen. I can tell you that our own state representative, Drew Darby, has been very interested in seeking funding and has had multiple conversations with TxDOT about how that might happen. As we know, in the current political climate at the federal level, there's not a lot of money right now for transportation, and probably not a lot of support for a new transportation bill, which might sort of hinder our completion of that corridor in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years. But if we can get the design done, then when the funding is available, we can then see that project to construction.
San Angelo has been a supporter of Ports to Plains for the last 6 to 8 years, and we're a very strong player in Ports to Plains. And as we have a lot invested in Ports to Plains, we have some expectations for Ports to Plains, and we have received more than we have spent as part of the coalition. But as we continue to grow this coalition, as we get more support, federal dollars, more support, state dollars, more support, community dollars, it's a win-win for us, because we are redesigning and we are refurbishing existing roadways. And I think that's probably the biggest fallacy that Ports to Plains has had to endure, is that we have been coupled with Trans-Texas, and we're 2 different animals. We're using existing roadways, we're simply trying to widen them and make them 4 lanes for the safety of our citizens.